Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Dr. Jeff Anzalone on the line, and he is CEO of debtfreedoctor.com and periodontist at Anzalone Periodontics. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adams, thanks for having me. Looking forward to spending a little time with you today.
Oh man, so I'm excited to get into today's episode. So we'll do a deep dive into debtfreedoctor.com, and that's, by the way, that's doctor with the DR for all those that are in the car not watching right now. But doctor with the DR, I'm excited to get into this and how you're really helping high income earners achieve passive income. So, some people think, is that possible? Is it not possible? Well, I'm here to talk to them and kind of get out of your brain, some of the things that you've been able to accomplish, not only personally, but for others through like what you're teaching. And I guess the elephant in the room here is I see all those lessons behind you. I've watched your YouTube channel for quite a while now, and that's one of the ways that we found you originally, because the content out there. So, man, I'm pumped to get into this, Jeff.
I'm pumped to know that I at least have one person watching my videos, so that's pretty cool.
Come on, Jeff. Too kind. So let's see. I'll start off this episode like we start them all. So I'll start with our signature question. So to find out more about your mission. So Jeff, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. So that's our mission here. Jeff, what mission matters to you?
Well, the term doctor burnout, it's actually can go across not just doctors, but a lot of high income, really stressed out professionals out there. It's becoming more and more prevalent. And unfortunately, I had two doctor friends that one of them was a childhood friend of mine, take their life the last 2 to 5 years. Part of that was burnout, and part of it had to do with finances as well. And if I can share information out there to let people know that if you're in that position, if you're burning out, you're not trapped. There is other things to do. There are other ways to get out of it. So if I could just provide that and help just one person, that would be a mission matters to me.
Man, Jeff, appreciate you sharing that, and love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs that really have the heart in what they're doing. So great to bring you on the show, of course, and bring this content to the audience. Because as I said, I've been following you for a long time. So first off, before we get into debtfreedoctor.com, before we get into kind of some of the work you're doing there, passive income, you're in scrubs. You're in scrubs right now. I mean, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Well, I went to dental school and then got interested in surgery. So I did a surgical residency, and about 2 to 3 weeks before I was graduating, the group that I was supposed to join here and practice, they took the deal off the table. And as you can imagine, if you've gotten to that point, and at the time we had a 2-month-old, we had just purchased a home, we were paying interest only, and had $300,000 student loan debt. And the worst part was, I didn't have you're not taught anything about business or money or anything, running a practice or, while you're in school. So I was relying on the group to teach me how to do that. But once all that went away, it was like, now what?
Wow.
And that was a big defining moment for us, because, when you're in dental school, medical school, law school, whatever, where that you're going to get out and make pretty decent money, you don't worry too much about your loan situation, because you kind of think in the back of your head, well, you're gonna do something to be able to pay it off. And with all that taken away, and I'm literally like, what do I do? I went from sort of an abundance type mindset to a scarcity one, just like that.
Yeah.
And the fear of things that could be taken away from me at any point in time really took over, and it took a long time to get that out. And occasionally I still have to deal with it, but it is what it is. Luckily, I connected with another dental specialist in the area, and he sort of took me under his wing, and he let me rent space from him. share his staff, use his equipment, help me network with the other dentists in the area. But what's kind of funny was I had to resort to what I used to do in high school and college for the first probably year and a half, 2 years, was mow yards again.
Wow. Wow.
So I was the most highly educated yard boy in America, I can guarantee you at that time. But you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do to make ends meet. And during that time, I knew, and he knew too, that I wanted to eventually go out and have my own practice, get a building or whatever. So as I was learning from him, the business side, I was writing everything down, knowing that, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to purchase or rent a building. So I need to know everything non-clinical. And then when I found the building that I'm in now, still, I looked up and I had like, over 100 pages of notes. I said, you know what, there's a lot of people out here that could probably benefit from this. So I went on Amazon, I figured out how to make it into like a book, and I self-published it. And that was my first book that I put out. So that was pretty cool to be able to do that. Basically it's just titled What They Don't Teach You in Dental School. So that's what it is. It's a very basic book, what they don't teach you in dental school or medical school for that point. But anyway, that sort of got me to the point of, during that time, I was a big Dave Ramsey follower.
Yeah.
And
I love Dave Ramsey. He's awesome. Like he's one of those just shoot straight, like no nonsense people. Very rare personality, in my opinion, in this space.
Absolutely. But he was really the only thing that financial, I guess, expert at that time. That was almost 20 years ago. And it was all about, as you know, the 7 steps to financial peace. And it was all about get out of debt, become debt free, and never go back into debt. And that's all I ever knew. So that's what we did. So it took about 6.5, 7 years, and we were able to get out of debt and pay off the house, everything. And then it was like, okay, now what? I've got all this extra money that I was putting at my debt, but it was kind of like, all right. And it's almost like, that's kind of like where his teaching stops. And I don't know how much further you want me to go with this. I know we're going to get into some other stuff later on in our talk, but that's what got me to the point of being set up financially to move forward, to look at other things.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and great transition too, Jeff. So now I think before we get into Debt-Free Doctor, I think I want to spend a little bit of time on just the idea of passive income, because I feel like what you said, like about Ramsey, like something like certain teaching, I would call him a guru. He wouldn't call himself a guru. He'd laugh probably, but I would call him a guru because he's helped so many people like achieve financial freedom and just be able to get out of debt and some of those fundamental basic things. So he's done a lot of great work. But the idea of passive income, I feel like there's just so many systems, things like all this thing to where it's like, I think it's become a little bit convoluted. So maybe start off with like your definition of, I know it sounds basic, but of like passive income and what it's meant to you.
Well, the whole idea of passive income, the idea actually came from a snow skiing trip about 7 or 8 years ago. And oddly enough, if you can kind of put those two things together, snow skiing, passive income.
I'm wondering where you're going at with this, Jeff. I'm in though, because I know you.
So, so we love going to Beaver Creek. So my wife and I, we got off the lift, and there was a ski school, like kids, and one kid broke loose, cut out in front of me. I swerved to try not to kill him and myself. And when I landed, when you land, you instinctively put your hands down. And I did that, and it bent my wrist back. Fortunately, it was nothing permanent, but that was the first time I ever thought in my head, okay, that was like a Saturday. I had to go back to work Tuesday. What if I couldn't go to work? Because I'd injured my knee before playing church league basketball. I could still work. I have my leg in a brace, sticking out in front of the patient, but I could still work. But without, as a periodontist, without the use of my hands, I would be unemployed and out of business very quick, as you can
Yeah,
imagine.
of course.
So I knew that the way that I was living was very risky.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a clue what to do. I just, that was it. Kind of like you don't ever think about getting injured or sick until what? You're
Yeah.
injured or sick. And so that was the very first time that I knew something had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and it took years and years and years to figure it out, but that's what started the journey to starting to replace my active or earned income, which earned income is just what it sounds like. You got to go to work to earn your income. So treating patients at the practice, I'm earning an income.
Yeah.
Well, unearned income, or quote passive income, is you get money whether you're there present or not. Like you had mentioned a little bit earlier, perfect example, if you have a rent house, you're going to earn that rent whether you're in the yard mowing it or in up in the mountains somewhere. So that's the difference between the two.
A great explanation. And I think that even though well, thankfully nothing was wrong with your hands, right? Because then, as you said, that could have been career ending. But the fact that like that woke you up, there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are like in that same exact situation, like whether they're, whether obviously dentists, but many other professions, whether they're surgeons in other fields or just, general practitioners. The idea here is that your service, if you have to go to work to earn income, you may have a blind spot there. You may have a blind spot that can be filled. Let's do a deep dive into debtfreedoctor.com. So first off, just a little bit more about like why you founded it.
I originally founded it when I had gotten out of debt. So I wanted to teach people my story, what we just discussed, with everything that happened, and to avoid a lot of the mistakes that we did. So just teaching the basic 7 baby steps that we went through to financial peace, and then some basic financial principles. That was the actual original reason. But if you go look at the site now, you'll see that it's really nothing about that, because the more we got into learning about how to develop multiple streams of passive income using mainly passive real estate, the more interest I started getting from people. How are you doing this? What should we look for? What deals are you doing? How do we find it? And it was all these kinds of questions. So, because I was doing it every day, it just became easy to basically just provide people with that information. So that's where the idea started from, and that's how it's transitioned now.
So tell me a little bit more about the growth, because I think like the brand, like the website, the YouTube channel, like everything matches. And what I like about it is you so authentically tell your story. So tell me a little bit more about the growth and how it built. So from the blog, and then you added some other things, because there's some mechanics here that they're nuanced, but you can feel it in the brand. I mean, you've just done a great job with the growth.
Being a redneck from Louisiana, when I first started, literally I could, my computer's on when I get here, so I don't have to turn my computer on, but I could go to the internet and I could surf the internet. That was my extent of computers. When I decided to start a blog, I didn't have a clue how to do it. So I started learning online for free. Luckily, I was able to connect with a guy that had a course, $400, $500, something like that. But that's been, and it took me about a month to go through it, but that's been the foundation of, every time I have questions, whatever, I'll actually go back and reference, oh yeah, I remember him saying that. That's how you do it. So it was like this for a while, just, very stagnant. And then once I started publishing multiple articles, it was like one every other week or something like that. Then once a week, then twice a week. And once I started doing it twice a week, after about 6 months, that's when we started seeing a little bit of growth. That's when it started to take off. And then about 4 months ago, I started a YouTube channel, which the reason that I did that was, and I always listen to podcasts, and I started getting on podcast interviews but there's just, as I mean, just like this with the video, there's one thing if you just read an article
Mm-hmm.
But if you can actually see somebody
Yeah.
and you see how their mannerisms and you see me doing my hands like this, and you make a connection. And I was making a connection with these people, while I was on the treadmill every day watching these videos. So, you know what? I've got like 300 articles that I've published on my website. Why not start repurposing that content and connecting with people? And I hate to say this, but I'm actually enjoying doing that more than doing the articles. So that's really cool. I'm just, I'll get to work at 7 o'clock Friday morning. That's the day I don't see patients, and I'll look up and it's 4 o'clock at, time to go to the gym. And it's like, where'd the time go? I'm just having fun, and it's really cool networking with people, connecting with people, doing these types of interviews, like connecting with cool people like you and other people. So it just makes it fun.
One of the big things, and I think Admission Matters is one of our favorite things, it's the community. Like, you're building a community around. Sure, there's money involved and things come in the back, and there's benefits and there's win-win situations created, but that value of community, like that, you can't put a price tag on that. Like, to affect people and affect their lives, they affect your life in turn by helping them. I mean, there's this reciprocal thing that happens when you're building a community. So the debtfreedoctor.com community overall, like, what's that meant to you?
I guess when the growth was just stagnant for so long, of course, you always hear, and I went to, I think it was called FinCon. It was a financial conference for bloggers. And you just kept hearing people say, I don't know what, the 75 to 80 something percent of bloggers, they don't last a year. And I was about at the year mark. I can see, I was just like, nothing's happening, And then they just kept saying, and just kept repeating, you've got to do 2 articles a week. And again, that's when I started doing that. And I said, okay, I'm going to do like the next 4 to 6 months. And if I don't see anything else, it's time to do something else, because it's very time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Probably takes me 4 to 6 hours of researching and writing and everything to do 1 article. I'm like, well, why do all this? Have a practice, do this, have married with kids, if it's not gonna, get out there. You can have the best information in the world, but if nobody's accessing it, well, what's the point? Once that started to pick up, then I started to connect with more and more people. And there's not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't, hey, email me, hey, I saw you on this video or heard you on this podcast. And this morning had a chiropractor email me, making 400,000 a year. That's a lot of necks and backs he's cracking, but that's a lot of money, But he said, again, I don't know this guy, excuse the pun from Adam, but I don't, so he's like, he was seeing 300 patients a week.
Wow.
And he's like, man, I can't keep up this pace physically. I heard you on the Tom Wheelwright Rich Dad podcast, Wealth Ability podcast, which is a great one, by the way. But he'd heard me on that, and he said, look, I really resonated with your story. And he listed out several things that were similar. So it's just stuff like that that keeps me going, and it's really cool.
It's surreal, isn't it? That when somebody reaches back, it really, to this day, like, sometimes I have a conversation with somebody and they'll say like a story, maybe I told like just some random story about my dad or my mom or something else, and they'll say like some knowledge, and I'm like, oh, people listen to this. Wow. It's kind of surreal, and it feels good from the standpoint of, it's great because it's hard to create content, put it out there for people to benefit from. So when you see the benefit, those little things, man, that keeps you in the game. So I can completely relate to that, Jeff. The nuts and bolts of debtfreedoctor.com. So tell us like how people engage with the content, and also like what to expect from the content.
Well, the content is geared, again, it's towards a couple of things. Any conference that I've ever been to, seminar, any book that I've read, and probably your listeners can attest to this as well. Most of the time, to be successful, to be wealthy, to be successful in anything at all, and I just kept hearing this over and over again, it starts with the mindset shift. You'll hear this a lot, and you don't really, and for me at least, I kept hearing and going, what are they talking about? But again, until you make that shift, that, that's when it really like, okay, now I understand. And for me, it was after reading two books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is also probably known as the Purple Bible. You may know that as that. And then he teaches, Robert Kiyosaki teaches in that book, the cash flow quadrant, which there's also another book called the cash flow quadrant. That was the book. What was kind of funny about it, in 1996, The Millionaire Next Door, I was a senior in college and here in Monroe, Louisiana. And that was when it was published. I read it.
Wow.
And it was just, I read it and okay, and put it on the shelf to move on, which I didn't know how much of an impact that would have later in life, but at least I was at least interested in that back then. Well, that book teaches, is one way, or it's talking about one way to wealth. They interviewed a bunch, thousands of millionaires, everyday millionaires.
Yeah.
And they were all, frugal, buying used cars. Most of them didn't make over 100,000 a year, just saved and saved 30, 40 years, and they became millionaires. The next year, 1997, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is published, total opposite. And I didn't read that book until maybe just 6 or 7 years ago, but
Wow.
it was totally opposite. It was literally everything. It was like, one was like, okay, save up and buy a house, and that's a big asset. And Kiyosaki's like, no, it's like a huge liability, so literally it was just like night and day. But the mindset shift for me came from when he described the cash flow quadrant. And when I learned that I was on the left side of the quadrant, I was a self-employed. That was when I was like, you know what, you're doing this the wrong way, because we're always taught that you should really focus on how much you make.
Yeah.
Hey, how much you making this year? I'm making 200,000. What about you? I'm making 350. Oh, I want to go get a job that's making 400. So it's always like, how much you make, how much you make. But Kiyosaki said, that's the wrong way to think.
Yeah.
As you know, it's not about how much you make. It's about how you make it. Okay. If I got to go and see 300 patients a week, cracking necks and backs, making 400,000 a year, or I've got assets like rental property paying me 100,000 a year, literally tax-free, that's a big difference. And it was until I made that shift, like, maybe there's something about that. So that's what really, after reading those books, that's what really started getting me towards, okay, I need to focus on, going down that route.
So I want to focus, first off, I didn't know we had this in common, Jeff. Exactly that book, Cash Flow Quadrant, and that particular thing. Funny story. So when I was maybe like 26, maybe, I played for the first time, maybe 24, something like that. No, 23, I think. I played for the first time the rat race, that game, Cash Flow something. Was it Cash Flow Quadrant? I don't remember. That's not the game. The one with the mouse on it that Robert Kiyosaki has. It might be called that, but I combined that game in that book. And that's how I pattern it. Like, they have a game piece in that game that just basically takes you through a cash flow quadrant. And that's how you play the game. It's like to get out of the race. So what I did was I took that game piece and I put it in a notebook, and I just made that was how I ran my finances. And for years, it probably took me like 4 or 5 years to do that in my earlier years, to accumulate, to do some other things, to where I'd finally accomplish that when I was about probably like 25, 26. And it was literally just playing that game. And by the way, I didn't have any expenses. I didn't have kids. I don't have no wife, anything like that. So we're talking small income, and not a ton of real estate, but enough. But the point was, the moment that happened, I was like, wow, I just had this feeling of freedom. So I didn't know we had that in common, Jeff, but that quadrant, that's one of my secret weapons, or not secret weapons, because I tell everybody all the time, but that, and then the game, you combine those two things and you kind of get that in your head. And if you can make it fun, I think it just changes everything. I think it changes everything. And it did for me. It sounds to me like it did for you. Speaking of content and things that have the ability to like make real change. So you created, I want to focus on, I mean, you have a lot of content, like you said, over 300 articles. You have your YouTube channel, which I will have the link in the show notes and all that good stuff, because I really want people to check it out, because you really do a nice deep dive into a number of topics, and I know you're going to continue just to build and build more and more great quality content. But the specific piece of content that I want to highlight is your doctor's passive income guide. So tell me a little bit more about that, the guide, and kind of what people can, we'll have a link, of course, in the show notes for that too, so people can download it, but what people can expect in that guide. And I know it's called Doctors Passive Income Guide, but really it could have been anybody, high income earners passive income guide, or anybody, in my opinion. So tell us a little bit more about the guide.
Yeah, you can, like you said, you can click on the link that you provide, or it's debtfreedr.com/free guide. And that was something that I put together, and I went back and I kind of put myself in my own shoes right before that snow skiing accident. You know, I'm going along, you know, treating patients, you know, everybody's going to work, you know, making that earned income, you know, focused on how much you make. And then I wanted to take somebody from that position and to share a story. And I shared the story, the snow skiing accident, to show them what could happen potentially, hopefully not. But if that's the way that you're living, focused on only your one income source to support your family, then you should consider doing something else, because it's just a risky way to live. And I'm not saying go out and work more jobs or more hours at all. I'm talking about taking any extra money you have from your earned income, investing it in assets that are going to pay you passive income to eventually pay your monthly bills. And once you get to that point, you're financially free. So I wanted to just to talk to that person that's in that position about the general concepts. It's not about how to do it and this and that. It's just about where you are now, where you should consider going, and then what passive income can do for you and your family and your family's family moving down the road if you decide to go down that route.
What's one of your, just to give the audience a flavor for the content, like what's one of your favorite chapters or stories or pieces from that content?
Probably the example, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's an example of a real estate deal, a syndication deal, which is passive for people that don't know, but it's nothing more than you putting money in, kind of like a mutual fund. You put your money in, that's it. And once your money's in, then you start getting a check every quarter for as long as the investment's held. So what I did is I highlighted in there one of those investments, because we're told, at least I was, you probably were too, we're told by financial advisors that we need a really large sum of money to retire on. And I think I was told like 8 or 9 million. And somebody that had 300,000 of student loan debt, that was mowing yards, didn't know what to do. And you're telling me that I need to save 9 million. I'm not a professional athlete. So that I'm talking about saving that. I'm not talking about making that in your lifetime. I'm talking about saving that. That's a lot of money.
Yes.
And that's probably probably one of my most favorite parts of that book, because I take that and then I show in one of those deals that you need way less money. And it's from a personal example, way less money, and what that much smaller amount of investment can do for you moving forward versus the larger one is. So that's probably my coolest piece of content in there.
That's awesome. Let's spend some time on the YouTube channel. So we brought it up a couple of times. We've of course talked about debtfreedoctor.com. What's your vision for the channel?
Vision for the channel, it's similar to the blog. It's to make people aware of. I just want to give people options, you know, because you know, again, Dave Ramsey helped me a lot, and he helped you. He helps a lot of people. What I did is I took his 7 steps to
Mhm.
financial peace, and I modified it down to 4 steps for
Mm,
people that are start off in their career later in life,
yeah.
that get out in high amounts of debt. But unlike most of Dave Ramsey's listeners,
Mhm.
they, more than likely we're going to make more than the average person calling into that show.
Yeah.
Where he teaches, of course, get out of consumer debt. And I agree with
Mhm.
that, but never go back into debt. Well,
Mhm.
if you're smart enough, then you know that you can use, there's good debt and there's bad debt, and
Yeah.
you can use good debt with leverage. I mean, every billionaire out there, every wealthy
Mhm.
person knows that. And if you're just telling people that's the only way to do it, I
Mhm.
don't agree with that. So my vision would be to give people options,
Yeah.
because it's called personal finance for a reason. It's personal.
Yeah.
So you may want to completely pay off your house and you'll feel so much better.
Mhm.
That's what's best for you. But somebody else may want to take that extra money, invest in something that's going to pay their house note, and
Mhm.
not concerned about it. So again, there's options out there. And that's my vision. I want to give people options of different things, and then they choose what's best for them.
Well said, Jeff. So have to say, I mean, debtfreedoctor.com, the YouTube channel, Doctor's Guide to Passive Income. You have another book out there also. I mean, you got a lot going on. What's next? What's next for you? What's next for the brand? And what's next?
I just want to keep, I think I'm going to focus more on the YouTube channel, just
Mm.
because I just enjoy doing it and connecting with people.
Mhm.
And I'm really focused now, before, when COVID shut down everything and travel and meetings,
Mhm.
well, wasn't able to do much. But now, as things continue to progress and
Mhm.
open back up, I want to get out there more, and to get out and speak more, to share my message, and then connect with people. And so
Mm.
that's what I'm going to be focused more on. And then just seeing where God leads me from there, because he's closed a lot of doors, but yet he's opened a lot for me as well. So I'm just along for the ride.
So Jeff, I mean, this has been awesome. And I know we said it once or twice before, debtfreedoctor.com, but if somebody wants to go pick up the guide, Passive Income Guide for Doctors, or to connect with you in general. So whether it's the YouTube channel, whether it's anything else, to follow the brand like we are here at Mission Matters, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for giving me this opportunity with you. But they can go to, again, I know you mentioned you were going to put the link in the show notes, but
Mhm.
debtfreedr.com/free guide. Or they could go, if you just search for Debt Free Doctor, my name, Jeff Anzalone, on YouTube, they can subscribe there. I personally respond to all the comments in the videos. So that would be I would love, number one, I'd love to see people enjoying and getting value out of the
Mhm.
videos, but I love to get feedback from the comments, because that's what keeps me to research what people are wanting, based
Yeah.
on what they're watching. And they may have like taxes. I did a video on taxes and how a high income earner can save taxes. So I got several comments about that specifically. I mentioned a little bit about depreciation in real estate, and I got comments about that. So now I'm able to go out and get them that information, doing a
Yeah.
video about depreciating, that sort of thing. So that would be cool, to connect with me there as well.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, as always, it's been a pleasure. I mean, having you back on the show again. For everybody, go check that out, debtfreedoctor.com. And that's Dr. DR, so debtfreedr.com. Also, leave some comments on those YouTube videos, man. Let's keep Jeff working over here. The more comments, watch what you ask for, Jeff. People are on there. They're going to be asking all kinds
My
of
wife would
comments.
like that too.
You might have to take 2 days off now from seeing patients after you start getting these comments, man. But seriously, really been a pleasure having you back on the show and just reconnecting. I'm excited for the next time we have you on the show. I just know you're going to be coming with more and more great content, more and more great stories. As the debtfreedoctor.com community just builds and builds and builds. I mean, us at Mission Matters, it really is a pleasure for us to watch it grow and to watch your success, and also just more importantly to watch as you keep on helping people and changing their lives. And it just, that reciprocation of just creating those win-win experiences. So again, awesome having you back on. And to the audience, as always, definitely appreciate your attention. But if this is your first time watching, hit that subscribe button. We have many, many more mission-based entrepreneurs and executives coming up for you, and we don't want you to miss any of that. And Jeff, again, been a pleasure.
Thanks, Adam.